never looks back. She never looks back. Looks back. To your bed, and they're calling out your name. Demons are crawling back to your bed. Demons are crawling back to your bed, and they're calling out your name. Demons are crawling back to your bed.
If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com, and thank you.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
And that is me. Boy, I just can't wait for my wife to go Christmas shopping this weekend. I tell you, before Thanksgiving, we have 8 children and a ton of grandkids, and it's going to be rather expensive this year for Christmas. I can tell you, with about 23 grandkids. What can I say? I wonder if I'm going to get a tree this year. Russell, are you still there?
Yeah.
So
that's a lot of presents to buy.
I know. And I'm retired, supposedly. You never know it. I put about 12, 13, 14 hours or more a day into this show. I feel like I'm working now more than I did when I was working.
I believe that.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of us would appreciate your work, though. I can't wait to dive into your archives.
Well, don't go too far back, because the show honestly stunk the first year I got back on, because I was out of radio for 10 years to, Art talked me and coming back into radio. And the first year, I'll be honest with you, I don't like it at all. And they really started getting good. I would say, James, about 6-7 months ago?
Yeah, maybe a little longer, but yeah, it's got good. You had good guests, and you just like anything else, you start out, you fine tune it. You start out with 15 listeners with the motorcycle, went back into paranormal, and now you're up to maybe, I don't know. I'll let you fill in that.
Well,
one.
On the internet, it fluctuates between 600 and 100,000 to 1 million. But on 22 radio stations, till the books come out, I have no idea. But I know it's more than 15, James. Let's put it this way. I'm happy at that.
Yeah, it's a lot more, that's for sure. I can tell by, I'll leave it at that. But you're right, it's way more than 15.
Yeah, maybe 16 or 17 by now. But, I think these reptilians, that maybe live under the ground, are some... How can I say this? Mary Joyce claims that on her website, and to having her on my show, that a government agent she knows real well, which she checked out his ID real well, claims that there is some type of humanoid that's working with the government in an underground base in North Carolina, sharing technology. In exchange, they get to have a few humans for, well, dessert. Do you ever think that is still going on, or is going on, or do you think that's all just fable?
Well, I'm aware of the people who are saying such things, and like I said, my strategy is just to file it and see where it coordinates with what other people do. I don't have personal experience with reptilian humanoids, so I am only subject to the hearsay from people who say they do have such knowledge, and some of it coordinates with one another. There's actually quite a few people that have that narrative that the U.S. government is working with extraterrestrials. You've got Emery Smith on Gaia saying that he worked in black projects and has met humanoid extraterrestrials, and I can't remember right offhand if he said he's actually met a reptilian. Corey Good, various figures in ufology are saying such things, and I don't dismiss any of it, because what I found out in 2009 in my near-death experience is that reality isn't anything like I thought it was previously, and it just cracked my mind open to all kinds of stuff. I don't write anything off as fantasy or fiction now. The way I look at it is, if it's fiction, it's very entertaining and interesting. If these people in Gaia are fabricating this, well, it's good entertainment. But, doggone it, it might just be true. One of the secret space program people, Randy Kramer, who I have had the opportunity to meet at a convention last year, just passed the lie detector test. So some of these 20 and back people that say they've been off in the secret space program for 20 years and retrograded age-wise are able to pass lie detector tests, which is fascinating. But back to the reptilians, one theory that's floating around out there is that when the dinosaurs got extincted, that there were extraterrestrial terraformers that didn't want all the life forms to go to waste. So they may have taken the best potential for future evolution, which would be a species called Troodon. It was a big-brained reptilian, almost humanoid-looking. There's even artist depictions on the internet of what Troodon would look like after 66 million years of evolution, either in the Draco star system or wherever they took them off-world. And, they may be, what people are calling the Draco reptilians, or the Draco reptilians may be more in line with what all the world scriptures refer to as the jinn, or Satan and his demons, or whatever. There's all kinds of stories about, an evil reptilian force that are able to shapeshift and appear to people. So there could be a higher density version of reptilians that are interacting with humanity to manipulate us into the singularity for their own purposes. If you listen to Alana Freeland and her book about the space fence lockdown, there's plans, according to her research, along with Clifford Carnicombe, the aluminum and the barium and the nanoparticulates are already in everybody's system. And what this is designed to do in the future is be hooked up to a central artificially intelligent grid to control Homo sapiens all the way down to the DNA level. That this space fence that's being erected around the Earth is part of that central AI system to turn it basically into a prison planet under the control of the Draco reptilians. Lynn Kasten, in his book, Alien New World Order, talks a lot about that. So, yes, these creatures may exist. They may be indigenous reptoids that live under the ground, that are elusive or don't want to be seen, and I certainly don't blame them. We're not the most friendly species. And then there may be highly evolved, higher density, we call this third density, and according to the raw material, there's fourth, fifth, sixth, and goes on up. Allegedly, according to the raw material, the fourth density, the one just up from us, is the last one that's directly involved in the so-called cosmic war, the dualistic war between what we call good and evil. And then fifth and sixth, they work by proxy. So they are not even directly involved, but that would coordinate with what you're talking about, that they have human proxies that are sort of doing their bidding. Then you got this other fellow, Stan Deho, who says he's working in a facility for the military in Australia with humanoid extraterrestrials that are working on high technology, and his superiors were worried at the time he was aware of this, that the technology was out of hand, that they didn't understand how any of it worked. So right now there's 56 companies working on what's called AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, human-level artificial intelligence. And Dr. Nick Bostrom from Oxford claims that whoever creates the first AGI pretty much has the fate of the world in their hands. It really depends on the cognitive architecture that goes into the seed AI, because once there's a human-level artificially intelligent being on Earth, Bostrom estimates 2 hours to 18 months before it will convert itself into ASI, which is artificial superintelligence, billions of times more intelligent than all humans combined. And there's some interesting speculation floating around with Bostrom and other researchers like Steve Omohundro and Eliezer Yudkowsky about what an artificial superintelligence would actually do. And one of the outcomes that Dr. Bostrom talks about is a planetary overlord, which when I read that, was kind of interesting because it corresponds with the title of my book, Overlords of the Singularity. But Bostrom's really big into the simulation hypothesis, where we're creating simulations, ancestor simulations, from what we call the distant future. And interesting enough, the raw material, or the Law of One material that was channeled by Carla Ruckert in 1986 says exactly that our higher self, which I met mine in 2009 when I had a near-death experience, exists in what we call the distant future. So it's a sixth-density entity that exists in what we would call, from our perspective, the distant future. And it's philosopher David Chalmers describes it as a two-way information exchange, that our physical life here is feeding information about what it's like to be in this form to our higher self, and we also have the ability to mentally or spiritually contact our higher selves for information. So it's a two-way information feed.
Yeah, it is interesting. I am worried about artificial intelligence. At one point, they are developing stuff now that is really alarming. Me and James were talking about the other night. They got this, robot that actually can go out, and what they're doing is working on a robotic serviceman, army man, to go fight wars. And that has appeared on YouTube, Facebook, and that. I tell you, it's capable of doing is, it really scares me. What scares me...
Well, it's very disturbing. DARPA is one of the 56 companies that are working diligently on artificial general intelligence. And personally, I'm hoping that DARPA is not the one that gets there first, because I don't want artificially intelligent super soldiers running around autonomously killing people.
That's the part that scares me. And what gets me is, I remember... like an old Star Trek episode, and then I remember Planet of the Apes. I remember a whole bunch of different movies going back 30, 40 years where they, and computers were nothing more than a joke. But whoever the writer was could see the future of computers to the point where the computer starts having its own intelligence, where it starts making its own decisions, and then starts looking at humans as inferior. And then at one point makes a decision. You know what? They're like a bacteria that we need to get rid of. And you could put safeguards in it, but at one point it's going to outsmart the safeguards.
Right. Well, there's a couple of strategies that they're talking about. One is to raise the first artificial general intelligence in a virtual reality environment, so that, it may or may not be able to figure out that it's operating within a virtual reality environment before it goes out to the real world. But, that's one of the fears. James Barrett wrote Our Final Invention, The End of the Human Era, that talks a lot about this, because the AGI could just decide to convert our molecules into computronium and use the material for its own purposes. And who knows what the purposes of an artificial superintelligence would be. I mean, Bostrom does a lot of speculation about it. Omohundro does too. He says it might render itself